I want to acknowledge some of the key points you have highlighted there, particularly where you captured the debate about sovereignty and statelessness that is affecting the evolution of human rights culture. I also want to acknowledge the statement made by the EU representative, unfortunately is gone, that we are witnessing in the West African sub-region and in sub-Saharan Africa democratic reversals. And these are very bad signs for good governance in Africa. But equally also, I want to state here that holding the international celebrating it in the House of Parliament speaks volume, because this House of Parliament is an epitome of liberal democracy. So there is no better place to do this than here, although Parliament has not taken steps to promote our rights to good ventilation. I'm expecting that in the future when we come here, you can enhance our right to good ventilation by putting additional systems to enable us to deliver comfortably and sit comfortably. But I want to thank members of Parliament for that, and I also want to thank the chairman of the Human Rights Commission for making a plea for increasing women representation in Parliament. I'm happy that he's ready to stand with us, and it is ready to fight for that, because that is why as a government we are pushing for proportional representation. That is one key way to encourage women representation. I'm happy that this is coming from a chairman that belongs to the God's People Congress Party. I want to thank you for that. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of His Excellency the President, I am very pleased to be here today to deliver this keynote statement on the occasion of the International Human Rights Day on the theme Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights. I want to thank the Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone for putting this program together, and more importantly for the excellent job they have been doing across the country. You all know, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that our government is aware of the numerous human rights challenges in this country and the continued efforts to address some of these challenges, particularly in our efforts to build a human rights culture in Sierra Leone. Some of these challenges are crippling challenges that have spanned several decades. As a government, we have taken bold steps to address many of such challenges, from civil, political rights to economic, social, and cultural rights. At this stage, I want to personally acknowledge the excellent work of human rights organizations in Sierra Leone. This country has come a long way, and that trajectory cannot be complete without the good work of human rights defenders that have been here and continue to be here and doing a fantastic job. Recently, you realize that our government expunged from our law books the seditious libel law found in Part 5 of the Public Order Act 1965, which for 45 years criminalized free speech and hindered the practice of journalism. Consequently, the Land Attorney General and Minister of Justice accordingly discontinued all matters before the court that bordered around seditious libel. This shows our government's commitment to freedom of expression and the press as contained in Section 25 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone, 1991. As a show of commitment to our women and girls, and due to the abnormal increase in sexual and gender-based violence, His Excellency the President declared a state of emergency on rape on 7th February 2019. Further to this, we reviewed and amended Sexual Offences Act 2012. Today, we have the Sexual Offences Amendment Act 2019, which has made involvement in unlawful sexual practices unfashionable. Equally, we also established the Model Sexual Offences Court and one-stop centers in order to expedite sexual offense cases and provide free treatment and psychosocial care to victims. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as a way of better enhancing equitable distribution of state resources and enhancing national cohesion. The government is on the verge of establishing an independent commission for peace and national cohesion. Our government believes that Sierra Leoneans in every part of the country deserves equal opportunities and access to state resources. In respect of economic, social, and cultural rights, our government believes that human capital development is the backbone to national development. In that regard, we introduced the free quality school education program from pre-primary through to secondary school, which has increased enrollment in schools. Today, we have 2.5 million children now attending schools across this country. This was a deliberate intervention to address the right to education, which, although not just TSCM, is provided for in Section 9 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone 1991 and Section 3.2 of the Education Act of 2004. In order to ensure the fulfillment of this right, the government has allocated and continues to allocate 22% of the annual GDP to the education sector. This government remains committed to continue to invest in education. We will recover better and stand up to redress the collapse that has plagued the educational sector over the years. In that regard, we hope that we are doing excellently well to stand up for the right of education. As a people, there is a consensus that corruption has been the greatest enemy to national development, and this has consequently impacted on human rights, including but not limited to the rights to education, health, housing, clean and safe drinking water, electricity, and the rest. In that regard, this government pledged to fight corruption with zero tolerance. Thus, we have made significant gains in this fight. You are all therefore aware about our performance in the Millennium Challenge Cooperation Scorecard. We passed this year 13 out of 20 indicators, including 81% in the fight against corruption, the highest ever in the history of this country. All these indicators, these 13 indicators, borders essentially on civil, political, and economic liberties. This is a clear indication that we are not only recovering better, but we are working hard to stand for human rights. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in order to decongest the correctional centers, the judiciary implemented prison court sessions in Freetown, Bo, Moyamba, Kenema, Kono, and Makeni, including Potloko, where it is adjudicated. It adjudicated about a total of 800 backlog cases. Our government has further improved access to justice by appointing 4 Supreme Court judges, 2 Appeal Court judges, 2 High Court judges. Recently, government has recruited 31 state councils as part of efforts to improve access to justice, especially in the region. And I'm sure the chairman of the Human Rights Committee will be very happy to learn that we now have 31 additional court state councils that have been added to the battalion of lawyers we have in the Justice Department. The right to health is another key component under the Human Capital Development Agenda. To this end, government has increased its allocation to 11% of its annual budget to the health sector to ensure that the sector becomes responsive to the health needs of its citizens. In furtherance of this, government operationalized the Ambulance National Emergency Service and distributed 80 ambulances across the country. Government also extended the scope of the free healthcare scheme to include Ebola survivors and persons living with disability. In order to improve service delivery and mitigate the pressure on pregnant women and children, at the PCMH and Oladuri Children's Hospital, respectively, government built and repurposed the facilities at Kinghama Road with 80 beds, and Rukupa Maternal and Children's Specialist Hospital with 100 beds. We also completed the construction of the Kairam Government Hospital with 100-bed capacity and the Lonely and Macaulay Street Hospitals in Freetown. All this is designed as part of our effort to deliver healthcare services to vulnerable communities, particularly pregnant women and young children. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, increasingly also, when you talk about human rights, you have two key components that nurture and help a country build a human rights culture. First is what we call institution building. You will note that this government, this country has made efforts in building institutions that will help us to build a human rights culture. Institutions so far that have been built, one of which is the Human Rights Commission, and now we are establishing the Peace and National Cohesion Commission. Also, we have been able as a government to introduce the civil society government dialogue. We started the first series that will no doubt going to provide the space for civil society organizations to engage government on a range of issues, including human rights issues. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about institutions, we are not only talking about structures. Institutions have got two key elements, structures and agency factors. The agency factors is essentially practices. I think these institutions, by creating that space for civil society and government dialogue, we are deeply democratic practices in this country. And I'm sure that space is going to be well utilized, and civil society organizations now have a platform to engage government, not only on a sustainable basis, but also to criticize government positively. And we are open to that. That is why we are supporting that structure. And that structure, that dialogue series is 100% government support, and we will continue to invest government resources to that. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this year's International Human Rights Day team, Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights, is quite well with government unwavering commitment to human rights during and the post-COVID-19 period. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs in his capacity as spokesperson of NACOBA has already highlighted the efforts we made as a government to improve, to make sure, while at the same time we try to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, we were cognizant of the fact that we respected fundamental human rights and will continue to do so. As a proactive government, we couldn't wait to register the index case and went straight into action to prevent the outbreak and mitigate its spread. We reconstituted the Emergency Operations Center and undertook early measures, including the pronouncement of a state of public emergency, rigorous state of emergency, rigorous screening at the airport, border closures, among other actions we took as a government. We are quite mindful that the fight against COVID-19 is a fight between saving lives and livelihood. As such, the government implemented a quick action economic recovery program focusing mainly on saving lives and to push the socio-economic impact of COVID. Government will continue to provide support. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me hasten to say that one thing we learned from the COVID is that the COVID-19 provided an opportunity for us as a government and as a people to look at the future of healthcare delivery. It also provided an opportunity for us as a government to look at the future of social protection. Just yesterday, I was in Rome to chair the Interagency Forum on Social Protection, where we clearly highlighted all the lessons we've learned from our numerous interventions to fight COVID-19. We've come to a conclusion that government is going to elaborate a national action plan on social protection, focusing essentially on supporting people with vulnerability, living with disability, and old-aged parents who have been abandoned. All this is as a result of how we want to look at COVID, because as a government, we want to build a bridge between our intervention and the future of healthcare delivery, social protection delivery, and supporting vulnerability in this country. So I want to note here that coming back from that, looking back at what we have done shows that we need to build that bridge. And that bridge is no doubt an indication that we are going to recover better and we are going to stand up to provide services to vulnerable people, vulnerable communities, and more importantly, take into account people living with disability. Today, the government is very proud to learn, to note that we are among 4 countries in Africa where a travel and health risk due to COVID-19 is rated as low. This includes Rwanda, Ivory Coast, and Benin. This is a list that was produced by the Control for Disease Center in the United States. It's a very rigorous performance benchmarking institution. So for Sierra Leone to be rated as one of 4 countries in Africa where it is safe to travel to, that is a bonus to our effort to fight the pandemic. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude by saying that although His Excellency continued to state that the moratorium on the death penalty remains in force, I have acknowledged the plea here made to abolish it from our books. Be rest assured that I will take this message to His Excellency in the next 2 hours. I also want to acknowledge the overwhelming call for more resources to support the Commission. Although government continue to provide support where it is necessary, be rest assured that this government is committed not only to building the human rights culture, but also sees human rights as a fundamental pathway to national development. I thank you very much.